Well, full disclosure here, I've been friends with Lois for so many years, and I'd like to start by showing my copy of The Giver, which was inscribed to me, "With best wishes, Lois Lowry." 1994. If that doesn't get you right here, I don't know what will. I mean, we're such good friends. And before we go any further, I have to confess, and I haven't told you this yet, Jeff, you are not my favorite Bridges.
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to tell you in front of all these people, but the guy who was my all-time hero.
You're a Lloyd fan. I knew
You knew it. How did you know it?
Well, you know,
Sea Hunt.
Mike Nelson, man. Of
Yep,
course.
Mike Nelson and Sea Hunt. I grew up watching that, knowing he was the guy I wanted to be. I wanted to put my face mask on like that.
He's my favorite one, too.
Oh, okay, that's good. Well, let's get into it then, because I got some questions here. In fact, there's a nice connection between you guys and your fathers and memory, and I thought maybe we could come some of that through The Giver. I mean, maybe we can start by, do you guys want to just say, how did this project get started? 20
Shall I go? You want to go with?
Let me start first with the writing of the book, and then you come in a couple of years later.
Well, I understand he gave you the idea for the book. Is that not true?
He gave me the idea?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
No, I didn't know him
okay.
at the time.
God damn Wikipedia.
The idea for the book, excuse me, came from my father, who was very elderly at the time. And though he didn't have Alzheimer's, was beginning to lose his memory as he approached 90. And during a visit, I became aware for the first time that he'd forgotten my sister, his first child, my older sister, who had died young. And I began to think maybe that would be a good thing, to forget something that was so painful, clearly the most painful event of my father's life, to lose his first child. But when a writer, and I bet there are many writers in this audience, begins to think that way, what if this, what if that, a story begins to take shape. I'd never been a writer of science fiction or even a reader of science fiction. So I didn't start out with that in mind, but I realized right away that the story would have to take place in the future, because I wanted to write about a group of people who had found a way to manipulate human memory. So I wrote the book, and now I'm jumping over to Jeff, because it was, I believe, 2 years later, after its publication, that Jeff, on the other side of the United States, I had written the book in Boston. You were in LA, I suppose, or wherever you lived at the time, and happened on the book, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. This is about 18 years ago, I guess, Dan. You wrote the book in, what, 94 it was published?
I wrote it in 93. It was published in 94.
That's when I got my copy of the book. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that, Best Wishes. That's very sweet.
Excuse me, I'm gonna correct myself. It was written in 92, published in 93.
Won the award in 94.
Yes, okay. So now we're 2 years after the publication, it's 95.
And I'd like to encourage Lois to augment her salutation in the book. Would you enjoy that, John?
No, that's fine. I think Best Wishes really is.
Oh, yeah, keep it plain and real.
Plain?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, 18 years ago, I'm looking for a project to direct my father, Lloyd Bridges, in. And I want to find a movie that my kids can see.
Yeah.
So I figured the best place to look is into a catalog of children's books. And I come across this fella here.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, my dad, he could play that.
Just even that image.
Just that image, which I find out later this photograph was taken by Lois.
Yeah.
Who was a photojournalist,
At the time.
At the time. Yeah. And then I saw this wonderful stamp, the Newbery Award.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that looks like a pretty good one. I'll check that out. And I got the book and read it, and it knocked my socks off as a children's book, but also as an adult. I just enjoyed the heck out of it. And I said, oh, this is going to be great. And then I started to kind of unfold what this book meant to people.
Yeah.
I found out it was, taught in schools. There was curriculums based on the book. As I remember, very excitedly talking to my wife, Sue. I said, look, I think I found the project for my dad. I started to tell her, and my 3 daughters happened to be in the room. She says, we know that book. We're studying that.
We had
Oh,
to
yeah,
read it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, this is great, and then in further examination, I find it's also on the banned books list.
Oh, we've got questions about that.
And so I
yeah.
say, oh, that's even better. That's more exciting. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
edgy, and that's but I like it. And I thought this is going to be easy to get financed.
Yeah.
And I was proven wrong because it was not. It took me 18 years to finally get the thing up and going, and a lot of that was due to the controversy of the being on the band's books list, and that kind of turned a lot of the financiers off. But also to come up with a script that was able to create, visually in a movie form, the world that Lois had created was quite challenging, and we went through a whole bevy of
I think six altogether.
6 writers and probably directors. I don't know how many directors, but we worked this thing,
Yeah.
And it was on again. We lost the rights. We got the rights back. It went on and again. And with my father, just to kind of not pass over this, I was so excited about the book. I came to my dad and I said, I think I got the project for his dad. What do you think? He said, oh, I can do that guy. Oh yeah.
I can do this guy.
Yeah.
But
and
what
read
did he have the
book.
beard or what? What did he think about that?
Yeah, he read the book and he dug it, and then I said, well, what I would like to do, we're from a showbiz family, so this was not that out of the ordinary. I said, I want to make a home movie of the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I got the troops together. We met in my father's house. I remember looking through his wardrobe and saying, oh, yeah, this robe, Dad. What do you think about this? Try this on. Let's look at it.
Yeah.
And, we're taking pictures. It was like we were making a movie. I mean, it was real. We took it seriously.
Did you end up filming the whole thing?
So we filmed the whole thing. My brother's son, Casey, was our cinematographer. He shot it. Bo's young son, Dylan, played Jonas. Bud Cort, from Harold and Maude, was our narrator. And we read the whole book, shot it. My father played
Do you still have a copy of this?
Somewhere, Casey claims that he has a copy of this.
I think this needs to be on the director's DVD.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think it's got to be on
The original
auxiliary
Giver's
stuff.
Shot.
Oh, yeah. And we have that whole thing. So now get me back on track, John. So anyway.
Well, it's more about like, who's the nicest person up here is the question we were answering.
Well, you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
No, I think, and we were circling around that question even of adapting books to movies. I mean, what drew you to The Giver? Because at first glance, you'd think like, there's not a lot of crazy action going on, but.
Yeah, it's part of the challenge.
Can I interrupt to
Yeah.
partially answer that question or to diverge from that question?
You didn't like my question?
I liked it, but it drew my attention elsewhere, and I just want to tell this little story before I forget it, which may happen in 5 minutes. You know what that's like.
Memory's tricky then.
Last night, Jeff and I went and taped the Stephen Colbert report. I don't know how to say that.
Colbert Report.
Colbert Report. And before we went to do that, did you get a phone call from the producer?
No.
During the day? I did.
Lois, is this an appropriate story? I mean, I think we should think before we tell.
It's actually going to come around and answer
okay,
your
good.
question. And so one of the questions from the producer, who was trying to prepare me to be on the show, which is a little quirky, as you know.
Yeah.
So she was asking me questions that Stephen might ask and listening to my answers, and then she was going to feed all of that to him.
Damn, we should have.
So one of the questions she asked was, so I understand the book is, you've described the book as introspective. What does that mean exactly? And she had prefaced this by saying, I'm going to ask these in the persona of Colbert's character. What does that mean, introspective? And I said, well, thinking of the Latin roots, it means looking inward. The book forces you to look inward. I'm pontificating, of course.
You may have gotten too deep for television.
And she said, now Stephen's character may take that to mean that you're looking at viscera and guts. And I was prepared. If he said that on the show, I had a great answer. I was going to say, no, it's more looking into the heart and the soul and mind of the character.
Let me ask
Notice that he
then.
never asked that?
Of course, no, that always happens.
I kind of like that. Well, I'll ask you, what is about introspection? Is it viscera?
But get back to your. She was on a.
She had another.
That was it. That was my whole
that
thing.
was
I
your
came
path.
around to the.
That was it.
To
I think you know what that
'Cause
also.
I forgot.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
But that also answers my next question about like, what is it? I think you want to answer what everyone came here to hear, is like, how much do you hate Hollywood? Is that a good segue?
You know, it's.
Oh no, that's. Well, how was your experience actually? That's more.
I think you hear very often from writers of books who are disappointed or frustrated by their
Yeah, the landscape's kind of littered.
the Hollywood experience. And I had previously had a couple of books made into mediocre movies, way back.
Yeah.
But everything came together here, I think, with the right people. And I never really had a bad moment throughout this.
Yeah, I was kind of amazed to hear all the stuff that you've had to say so far about how involved you were and the things you got to do. Can you talk a little bit about like how you added to the script even?
Do you feel that we're going to go to the naked lady scenario again?
What is the naked lady scenario?
Let's go there now.
Okay.
Let's go there. That's my next question. What about the naked lady scenario?
I said off the top of my head, hastily and without previous thought, and humorously, that I was sorry they had cut the scene out of the book, not put it in the movie, where the boy bathes the old lady, because I said I'm finally old enough, that would be my cameo role.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I said this to an audience of 1,800 librarians in Las Vegas.
Nice.
And then the press keeps picking that up, and
You gotta be careful
And you know,
what
when
you
you say something sardonically or
Yeah.
you know just offhandedly, they sometimes quote you as if you meant it seriously. So several publications have said Lowry wanted to play the lady in the bathtub.
I'm blogging that like,
You know you said it.
yeah, well, you know you said that. We're tweeting that shit out right now.
Okay, now I've forgotten what the
If
question
you were,
was. The Hollywood
here's a
experience.
question for you. If you were offered that role, would you accept?
And the answer, the truthful
Yes,
answer
yes.
would have been no, but it wouldn't have
I
mattered.
don't believe I don't believe.
I don't believe that either. I'm with you.
Oh.
I think in a
I
heartbeat
think
she would have
I
been
think
there.
she would say,
Yeah.
"Can I wear those little things they put on the nipple?"
Yeah.
Now, see,
That's what
I'm
I
not
would
a
have said.
Hollywood
Yeah,
insider.
yeah.
I don't know about those little things. Maybe
What
that's.
do they call those little things?
As a producer, I would say, "Good."
I will tell you though, Brenton, this adorable kid who plays Jonas, and we can talk about the fact that the
Yeah, yeah.
ages are a little older.
Yeah.
But Brenton said when he read the book, he was scared to death he was going to have to be in that scene. That he was going to have to bathe an old lady.
Well, that's the thing, one of the scenes that probably made it so hard for you to sell it to producers, right? Because, I mean, wasn't that the controversy?
Yeah, those kind of things, and those are the kind of things I wanted to keep in the movie.
Yeah.
They're so odd. And
Well, that and the baby killing, I know you came out in
and
favor
the
of.
euthanasia, all of that.
Euthanasia.
Oh yeah, that was a big.
That's a bad
turn
quote,
off.
too.
That was
Jeff
a
Bridges
turn off.
in favor of euthanasia.
Well, having it, dealing with it, talking about it.
Yeah.
That incidentally was a scene which, if they had tried to take it out, I would have, not that I had any control, but I would have objected. If they'd taken out the scene of the father killing the newborn infant, that seemed a pivotal scene to me. And I was pleased to see, not only did they retain it, but they filmed it so carefully.
Well, that's that real Jonas moment when he finally
Yeah.
sees the truth of what's going on. And I got to see the movie, and it's just amazing. It really is. You did just a masterful job of taking a tough book to adapt. And yeah, do you one of you guys want to talk about that process of having a great book and a great movie, or what makes a movie and a book stand side by side?
Yeah, I really came to a crossroads, having been involved with it for 18 years, and I finally found out that Harvey Weinstein and his company and Walden Media were going to step up and make the movie.
Yeah.
And in some of the preliminary meetings, I was finding out that they didn't want Jonas to be 12 years old. They wanted him to be older, and that gave me a taste of what they were going to cut out and how they were going to alter the movie.
Yeah,
the
that's
book.
a jump.
And I said, oh man, I love this book so much. Now, I'm talking to myself. I said, Jeff, do you want to say, bon voyage, guys. I wish you the best of luck. Off you go. I'm not going to join you. Or just get in cahoots with these artists, and do it. And something I often do when I get in that crossroad position, I ask myself, how are you going to feel, Jeff, if you say no? And how are you going to feel? And when I imagined saying no, projecting into the future of myself saying no, it was just depressing. I thought, oh God, I can't do that.
And to see the thing come out later.
Or just, however, I 18 years, and so it was kind of an exercise for me, giving up my expectations and my control, I guess you say, and say, just do it as an experiment. Get in cahoots with these other filmmakers. Look at what comes out of Harvey Weinstein's oven. God, some beautiful pudding.
And Walden Media, who
and
had
Walden
done
Media,
Holes, which is a great adaptation of the kids'
and all
book.
the C.S. Lewis stuff. So I said, I'm going to jump and do this.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did.
Well, you're in a unique position too, because you're acting in it. You produced it also, and then kind of shepherded the thing through.
Yeah.
Which really shows.
One of the first things I did as a producer was got all of the troops together, and I said, let's read the book together. Kind of like recreate what I did with my dad, actually. When I think
Same
about
thing,
it.
right?
And did you have the director at this point?
Yeah. Philip was there. The cast was not entirely cast. My brother played. Oh, I got to read.
Yeah, oh, that was
My brother.
I faked
This
it.
is going to get naked in a minute here. I just know it.
My brother played Bud Cort's part. He narrated the whole thing.
Still not my favorite Bridges either.
And we read the whole thing, and I wanted to do that just to make sure we were all on the same page.
Yep.
And that this is what we were going to do.
Well, I think that's what we fear as writers of books, like that it'll go to Hollywood. People won't even look at the book. Or they'll maybe glance at the title and say, I love this book, let me change everything.
Yeah, I'm going to make the movie I wanted to make, and we'll.
And then you
use this
start to
book
hear
to it.
things like, oh, the kids are now 16.
I know, and all that stuff. Well, that was the big
a big
big thing for me, and I'm so glad that I came on board and let that one kind of go, because it's wonderful in life when you discover you're wrong.
Yeah.
I love that, because then you think, well, what else am I wrong about?
Yeah. Well, I'd
might
read
be a
about
wonderful
casting
relief.
Jonas too. I mean, that guy.
Well, that's what
how
I
old
said.
Is he? He's
So
in his 20s.
I was so anxious about it, and they wanted to make him more like 17, 18. But then I started to get into it with Philip, the director, and we thought, well, we don't have to even declare the age in the script.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it. And Brenton came up with an excellent point. He said, the ceremony of 12, as it is in the script, in the book, he said that could be the ceremony of the 12th grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started to think about my own experience with my kids. And when they were about, 17, 18, that's when they started to think, gee, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so that kind of made sense.
Yeah.
And then meeting Brenton Thwaites, who plays Jonas, and Odeya Rush, who plays Fiona, they were so wonderful and had this innocence, and they were just the perfect quality. So it all kind of came together, and it's an odd feeling to be happy about this, how long it took. That was like the gestation period.
Yeah.
It almost
For
needed to
everything,
gestate.
like Fiona, Odeya Rush wasn't born 18 years ago. That wouldn't have happened,
That's a
and
little
to have
scary,
all of it come together, and have Philip Noyce, who is our captain through the whole making of the movie, and he was such a great one. I remember his first speech to us, and I take this to heart with a lot of my endeavors now. I will carry it, I think, for the rest of my life. He said, we're going to have strong backs and soft fronts. We're going to have to really, this is going to be tough, because we had a kind of a low budget movie.
Yeah.
And we'd have to do a lot of work. We'll work long hours. ours, and at the same time, we would have to remain open to receive everyone's ideas and, and let the spirit of the giver, the muse of the giver, come through us. And I think that's what happened.
That's a perfect match with what the giver is. So how did you talk Meryl Streep into like being part of this?
That was Harvey.
Oh.
Harvey pitched it to Meryl, and he pitched it to Taylor Swift too. He was, Harvey
Another
is like,
natural choice.
Harvey is like an old school, yeah.
I kind of love when she shows up. It's like, wow.
He's an old school, cat. He's not. So much now is, it's show business, and the business part of things is so underlined. And Harvey is certainly into the business, let me tell you, but he's into.
I've heard that about him. Yeah.
He's into the art of it too, and he participates in that kind of level, and I really appreciated that. And casting is just about everything.
Can I just make a comment though about Meryl Streep? When I heard that she was cast, I thought, I don't believe I said, but I thought, why on earth would she take a little role like that? Because in the book,
right, in
that
the book
role
it doesn't even exist.
Is a small role.
Yeah.
The character is there, but she has no personality.
Yeah, so in this clip,
She's the chief elder. She's the one who gives out at the ceremony, gives the kids their assignments for the future. But the scriptwriter, both Bob, the first one, and Michael, the last one, together, had beefed up that role, so she's a much more complex character.
Yeah.
And then, given those scripts, Meryl brought even more to it. I think she just elevated into a very multi-layered, interesting character.
Yeah.
I've said several times now that I wish I could go back and rewrite the book and write that character in, because she's not there.
Well, there's a great dynamic when she's battling with you. And
it gives a lot of conflict with Jeff.
With Jeff as the giver.
Yeah, I've had a weird backstory. I don't know if I've ever run it by you, see how that jives with your thinking. But my thought, how many people out there have read the book? Oh, great, wonderful.
Yeah, you're going to be so sad. Oh no.
So in my mind, and we talked about this with Meryl, and she liked the idea, and kind of what we were playing was that Meryl's character and I, the chief elder and the giver, in the past were actually very much like Jonas and Fiona, and that they fell in love. And a very similar story happens with Jonas and Fiona, and they actually consummate their love, and they had a child. And the chief and the elders at that time said, "Oh, we've got to send them to elsewhere. This will not do."
Yeah.
And the giver at that time said, "No, you don't understand. These are powerful souls that have come through."
And the child they had was Rosemary?
And the child they had was, in fact, Rosemary. But not said in the movie or anything, but that's like backstory that we were.
But if you've heard this conjectured backstory, and then you watch the scenes, you can see that hints of it are there in Meryl's tone of voice and in her face from time to time.
And then how did Taylor Swift come to this thing?
Harvey, that was another Harvey thing. In the script, Rosemary is teaching the giver how to play piano, and so I guess in Harvey's mind he's saying.
We should explain to the audience how Rosemary appears, because in the book she's dead before the book begins, and that's true in the movie also. Yeah,
because so she's the choice of a giver before Jonas, who didn't work out, and it's kind of seeded in the beginning. You find this out, and people are saying like, he's got one last chance or another chance as the giver, like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah,
you did once
right.
already.
Yeah, right.
I don't believe Meryl says it exactly like that, but
Fudge, I think.
Fudge, she says, yeah.
But so then you get to see this previous receiver, Rosemary, but she comes back as
like a holographic projection. Yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, it's a wonderful scene.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist in the book. You don't see her in the book.
Which is exactly like, that's to the heart of it, I think, of like what makes a good book and a good movie not the same thing. And to try to make one be so slavish to the other.
Yeah, that was a great direction that Lois gave us all, was that she was not, because we, especially, I don't know about especially, but for me, I was so it was so important to me that we passed Lois's inspection, and I was so happy that she came on board. And one of the first things she said to us that she wasn't so concerned about getting every fact that was in the book up there on the screen, but that the spirit was there.
Yeah.
And she kept us on track, and I think you passed your inspection. Yeah.
Well, and you guys were so far ahead of the curve of Dystopia. Do you feel bad now for launching all that? Because it is the plague of children's books now. Like every manuscript that
Yes,
comes into
people are
an
getting
editor is
so
like, oh, I
sick
have
of
an
it.
idea about Dystopia.
Yeah. No, I'm delighted to have written the one I did when I did it. And I'm actually oddly, as we've now explained, oddly glad that it took so long to make it. Even though there were other wildly successful dystopian novels and movies that came before The Giver, still it's not the same as those. I don't think it's even deserves being compared to it. It's a different kind of book, different kind of movie.
Different tone.
Well, I love this piece that I actually read in like all the material for this, talking about how you get so much fan mail about really dramatic things that have changed people's life with the book. But you also get the fan mail that you're the Antichrist. So which of these is true? Can you answer that today? I would love to know.
You know, what's interesting to me now, since we've begun to get some feedback from press who have seen the movie, media people who have seen the movie and have written about it in various places, and suddenly I'm seeing articles about this. Finally, somebody's made a movie extolling the Tea Party, ideas of the Tea Party.
Well, that's the message I got,
And I happen to be a registered Democrat. I don't think it matters. I think it's interesting that the book presents, and the movie, presents ideas that anybody can attach themselves to and claim. It's a broad spectrum. You can also see, which I find very interesting, Katie Holmes in a role that is so unlike what we expected Katie Holmes to be playing. She's quite chilling in this role. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah, so she's Jonas's mom, and it's just all about like keeping things okay. And you totally believe her in this too, which I love, and the dad too, who's like, he's killing babies, but he thinks he's just doing good work.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I can see why this might have been a tough sell for the last 20 years.
But the guy who plays the father, Alexander Skarsgård, whom I wasn't familiar with, though I'd heard the name because it turns out there are a lot of Skarsgårds who are actors, and they're all brothers and father and son. But I Googled him when he was cast, and I discovered there's a website called Swedish Delish, devoted to how sexy and gorgeous Alexander Skarsgård is.
Wow.
And that's what
We're learning so much about Lois Lowry tonight.
But that's what his reputation has been. So he's completely...
Is that his nickname, like Swedish Delish?
Somebody calls him that, and probably has many followers.
Man, I thought the dude was a good nickname. I'm going to go with...
But
never
at any
mind.
rate,
Go ahead.
Here he is playing a role in which he's almost asexual and dispassionate and completely unlike what you would expect. And who did the casting?
Me.
Really?
No.
A round of applause, please, for the casting director also.
No, it's a collaborative art form. You know, it was Harvey did some. But it all kind of went through my. I said, it's a good idea.
Well, that's a tough moment, yeah. Like,
What's that?
Like he's got to be so believable as a guy.
Oh,
Jonas's dad. He's working at the nurturing place, and he's injecting babies and killing them if they don't wait.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't buy into him, you kind of don't have any balance in the movie then. Which is, I kind of love what you guys pulled off there.
What's that?
Casting. Oh, and the other great casting stroke was, are you responsible for baby Gabe?
I wasn't.
Were you
but
the baby
I
wrangler?
think that might be my favorite performance in the whole movie. Babies, direct actors are always getting, a direction from the director. They say, "Don't act so much. Come on, just don't act. Just be." And there's nothing. Babies are experts at being. And you can learn so much from that. And also the casting thing. I was saying casting is, 99% of the whole thing as far as being creatively a success. that's not only the actors, but that's how you cast, the director and the, director of photography and the costumer, all those things.
Yeah.
And I think in this movie, it all came together.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful.
Well, and then where were you guys working? Where did you actually film this?
South Africa.
Who picked that?
That was kind of a combination of all the, the forces,
Yeah.
Philip, who had worked there before, Harvey certainly, myself, and, we're very attracted as filmmakers to work in places that give us a break financially, and South Africa was one of those places. And also, which was so cool, it had Table Mountain, which was a fascinating location for the community to be
like built on the top of this mesa.
Yeah, it's an amazing geological structure in South Africa that just comes right out of the sea. This plateau. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, and so it's imagined that the entire community is just built on top of it. So you could see how it could be perfectly isolated.
Yeah.
Were you ever on set there, Lois?
No, I was there only for a brief time, for a few days.
I understood you give Meryl Streep direction, too.
I was there after Taylor Swift had come and gone, so I didn't meet her, and I was there before Meryl Streep arrived. So I was there with Jeff and the 3 kids and the Swedish delish, Alex.
I'm not going to call him the Swedish delish, if that's okay with you.
I got to watch them film the scene in which he killed the baby. And in fact, there was a funny moment there. I wrote that scene, of course, carefully.
That's a terrible quote also, by the way.
Sorry. There's an ironic
You just beat
moment.
Jeff's euthanasia for it.
My brother is a doctor, and when I was writing the book, and they were in the book, the father was going to inject the baby, I called my brother to ask how that would most easily be done with a newborn infant. And my brother said they would inject into a scalp vein, which is visible on the side of the newborn baby's head, because babies' veins are very tiny. So that's what they do in the book. And then when I was over there in South Africa and they were filming that scene, I was watching on a monitor in another room. The scene was taking place over here and the cameras were there, and I was allowed to go and stand by the cameras, but it was easier to watch on the monitor. So I was doing that, and then I heard Philip, the director, he called out, "Lois, where's Lois?" And so I went in, and he had a baby lying on a table, and he said, "Show us again where the needle should go." And I didn't have a needle, but he wanted me to point, and so...
Thank goodness, I think.
So I didn't want to wake up this baby, and so I said, I'm not going to touch him because I don't want to wake him up, and they all started to laugh. It was a fake baby. They had a real baby crying and waving its arms until they filmed the insertion of the needle and then cut, and the fake baby is brought in.
Hollywood magic.
At any rate, Philip didn't like the place I had shown him.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be plunged into the middle of, sorry.
Man, I can tell you at the screening when that happens, like everybody, just the woman next to me actually
But they
sat
were
more like
very
this.
careful. They told me not to film. You can't see the needle entering the baby's
I
head.
thought I did.
No, look again. You
I guess
did.
that's the thing with
camera
memory,
angle
right?
is very carefully chosen. But at any rate, so there I am arguing with Philip over this fake baby, where to put in the needle. You weren't there. You were back at your hotel, probably sitting by a pool because you weren't working that day. So here's what a film director does.
Man, you just got thrown under the bus there. I don't know what happened.
Philip calls to his assistant and said, "Get me a doctor on the phone." And she did. And so he's saying, "Where would you inject it?" And the doctor, and they have this little conversation. And
So it's kind of in the back there, right?
I
I think
don't
this
know.
conversation got horribly out of control here.
I voted for the Fontanelle, the soft
Between
spot.
the-
Yeah.
The Fontanelle, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was the groovy spot.
Maybe we better ask another
that's
question.
moving on.
right
Or
along.
this may be the answer. Like, what is the weirdest question you guys have gotten when you've been out promoting this? Because I know, like, when Lois and I go to schools and stuff, we hear from 3rd graders and 4th graders who just, well, adults too,
Yeah.
who ask the most bizarre things. Like, what's the weirdest thing you've got?
Isn't that odd that neither of us can think of
Nope.
it?
It's the memory deal, isn't it?
You just block this from
it's
your
gone.
memory?
It's gone.
Yeah.
No, I just I'm empty. And when you ask that question,
I will
there's nothing
describe to
there.
you, though, and I assume Jeff did the same thing last Friday. I was in Los Angeles, as was he, but he was in a different room from me, sitting in front of bright lights with a camera.
Yeah.
And over the course of the day, 52 different journalists came in and sat opposite and asked questions. They each had 4 minutes. Were you doing this?
Oh,
at
yeah,
the same
60,
time?
yeah, 60.
So after a while, you don't remember the questions.
Well, I think it's time where you get to ask questions. Yes, we're going to have ushers roaming the sides.
And so maybe now we could turn the lights up on the audience,
Yes,
you think?
we will.
Oh, that's good.
There they are. And
First question is going to be, where is Jeff Bridges?
He came. Damn, I guess he didn't like the question so much. No, he said he's coming back. He promised. We have microphones on either side, so just like wave your hand or wiggle, and feel free to ask absolutely anything. We've covered a lot of ground here.
I'm a 68-year-old man, and I just finished your book this afternoon, and I was blown away totally. I'm a teacher of literature as well, and quite honestly, because of this afternoon, I thought I would read it. To me, it felt like it wrote itself almost. I mean, every time I came to the end of a chapter, I wanted to read on, And you mentioned earlier on that there were things that you, if you had known this, you would have added that. In the process of writing, were there things you left out, you thought you would go this way? Are the things now, given 20 years later and the way our society has turned out, you would change a little bit?
If I could write the book over, there are things I would change. That's true of every book I've written, and I've written, I think, 45. The one thing, aside from beefing up the Meryl Streep role, as I now think of it,
Yeah.
I feel that the last section where the boy has fled with the baby is truncated. It's too brief. And I envisioned it covering a broad span of time. But I think what happened was I was stuck with a boy and a baby who didn't talk, and nobody else. And it was difficult to, I mean, there can't be any dialogue. And so I...
And then when you see it on screen, it's just so dramatic. The
Yeah,
scenery there.
that section in the film is spectacular because of the landscape, which almost is a character in the movie. And part of it was filmed in South Africa, which has fabulous landscape. But then they needed the snow and the hills for the final scene.
Yeah.
I tried to talk them into filming it in Maine, where I live, but they didn't. They filmed it in Utah, and it's very beautiful, the snow scenes as well. You didn't have to be there for that, though. You're not in that scene.
No, I'm not in. You know how I saw that end of that scene? I remember reading the book and how much I loved that when Jonas left the community and you never went back to the community.
No.
You never knew. And that always brought to mind two films, I guess. One was 2001. You remember when all of a sudden he's in that white room?
Yep.
You're, what the hell is this? It's like a whole different
Complete
film.
change, right?
Complete change. And also a film, who wrote, Occurrence, Owl Creek Bridge, Andros
Bierce.
Yeah.
Ambrose.
And I remember seeing as a kid, I saw it on the Twilight Zone, but I think it was a famous French short.
Yep.
Do you remember? Do you guys remember? You know what we're talking about? It's like a civil war. It takes place during the Civil War, and the Union guys are marching out this Confederate guy to be hung on a bridge, and they hang him, and the rope breaks, and he escapes, and he's in the river, and they start to shoot him, but he escapes, and all of a sudden he's in nature, and he appreciates his life for maybe the first time. So, the bugs, the raisins, it's beautiful. I'm free. Oh, thank God. And now they're coming after him again, and he starts to run, and now he's running down this lane of cypress trees, and you see at the end of the cypress trees this beautiful woman holding her hands out. You don't know if it's his mother or his wife or whatever. And then he just as he gets to her, that's the end of it. And I was kind of going for I'm thinking of that. But I find out from Lois is like, where do people get this idea that Jonas might have died and that was his death thoughts, and that never occurred to you? I can't quite believe
Well,
that.
I think it's that last phrase in the book where you say, like,
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
it might be an echo.
Yeah, I liked the
shredded.
ambiguity of it.
Well,
I
see,
found.
I love
yeah.
it too.
It seemed optimistic.
So maybe they do die. We're not giving it.
Well, no, but
Well,
I know, but
no.
she wrote some sequels.
Don't tell anybody that.
Yeah, but I dug the ambiguity. Too.
But the movie does maintain the same ending, but I think it's a little less ambiguous. You're quite clear that they're alive in the movie, don't you think?
No.
No, okay.
But this is something that both Lois, it's interesting. You get these teams on these
We were
collaborative
arguing.
things. And Lois and I were on the team of that line that you mentioned, which was so beautiful. Can you say that line off the top of your head?
Wait, I can read it.
Oh, you read it. That's such a
From my
beautiful-
book. That's dedicated
With
to
best
me.
wishes.
I don't know if you.
Yeah,
knew
read
that.
the last couple of paragraphs. Or something.
Oh yeah, so maybe even the very end.
Yeah.
So Jonas is whipping down there with Gabriel in the snow, and it's downward, downward, faster and faster. Suddenly he was aware, with certainty and joy, that below, ahead, they were waiting for him, and that they were waiting too for the baby. For the first time, he heard something that he knew to be music. He heard people singing. Behind him, across vast distances of space and time, from the place he had left, he thought he heard music too, but perhaps it was only an echo.
Now, the movie goes back. You get to see what's happening during this ride on the sled at the end. You go back and you see Jeff and you see Meryl and you see what's going on. So it's a little less ambiguous.
Yeah. Next question, please.
Jeff, what's it like to finally finish an 18-year-old project?
Say that again.
What's it like to finally finish an 18-year-old project?
Oh man, yeah. I've been at this for quite a while, and I've never experienced something quite like this. I see my partner out there, Neil Koenigsberg, right there, he's waving his hand, and we've been at this for 18 years, and we've done a couple other movies together, American Heart and Hidden in America, and those took a while to get made. Yeah. But 18 years, wow, Neil, huh? All the ins and outs, and huh? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's the same feeling at the end of Owl Creek.
Yeah, but almost like, almost in the a reverse of Owl Creek. In Owl Creek, the guy, and this is like, we're alive. It's a wild kind of feeling.
Or we don't know for sure.
That as you were reading that last passage, how can I say? I'll just stumble through my attempt to articulate the feeling. Are we alive? What is being alive? Is it a dream that's going on? What the hell is this? What kind of story? What kind of world do we want to be a part of creating?
Yeah. That's why you've hit the heart of the giver, and I think it's so perfect that you guys matched up on this project, because it comes through in two different ways, in the film and the book. And they're huge questions, which I think you're asking exactly the right audience of kids who are willing to kind of still ask those questions.
Yeah.
And
all this
we're not giving them answers.
Right.
We're just giving them the questions. I think that's important.
Well, both of you are such provocateurs of not giving answers, which I love. I think that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and all this technology that is available to us now and creates such hope.
Yeah.
And also is kind of frightening for me, at least, because our ethics haven't caught up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, somebody on this side.
Hi, is it on? Okay. So I read The Giver, I guess 13 years ago. I was maybe 13, and I'm a lit major now, and I recently read Desiree's Baby by Kate Chopin, and she has this very similarly ambiguous ending where Desiree walks off into a field with the baby. So I thought a lot about The Giver when I read that, and I was curious how you felt about ambiguity in the ending of literature.
Could you repeat her question?
How do you feel about ambiguity at the end of literature, like end of books?
Oh.
Because she had read some other books with that same. You're starting a trend here.
Oh, okay. Well, I happen to like ambiguity. I like things that make you think.
Yeah.
It troubles me when kids write to me and say they would like me to spell things out more.
And give them the answer.
Yeah. But I guess I'm not part of the majority in my feeling. I'm not sure.
No, you're leading the pack, though.
Oh,
So keep
okay.
doing that. Yeah.
Hi. So I read The Giver when I was in 6th grade, and I was 11 years old, and I reread it in college as an English major. And I recently stumbled upon the companion novels. And so I was curious, and those were just as invigorating as reading The Giver for the first time. But I was curious if you had already created the world that the companion novels and The Giver exist in when you just wrote The Giver, or if it was something that you then felt the need to expand upon afterwards.
I need you to repeat her question again. For some reason, I'm not
Yeah,
hearing
it is
the
kind of a
questions
weird
very
mic
well.
thing. So it's like, had you thought of that whole expanded world of The Giver of the quartet?
No. No, I had no intention of writing succeeding books, and there were great gaps of time between the 3 that came after The Giver. But partly, I guess for 2 reasons, I did go on to write those other 3, partly because of the questions I had from ongoing from the audience.
Yeah.
And 2, I think I began to ask myself questions. For example, the second book takes place in the same time period as The Giver, but in a very different kind of community. And I think I began to ask myself, what if in the future, if our technology had not advanced to the state it is in the world of The Giver, but what if because of cataclysmic events, we had lost our technology and become, once again, very primitive? And so I created this world that has not even simple plumbing or electricity, but has vestiges of what had once been. And then I began to realize I could connect that to the first book. And then from there, I went on to write the 2 more eventually that were clearly connected as well. The 4th one ties everything up, lets you know where everybody is. Jonas is a man in the 4th book and married and has 2 children. And everybody is situated, and so it should, there's not going to be a 5th book.
And Jeff, you're working on financing all of these right now.
Well, you know, I haven't read those books, and I'm just curious, is The Giver in any of those books? Shucks, no? Is that just
Sorry, I mean, you were really
shucks,
good in this
no?
one, though. I'm sorry we couldn't have any more work for you. Yeah, over on this side, yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, I have a question for Ms. Lowry, but I can't miss this opportunity. I mean, I'm certainly never going to be able to speak to Jeff Bridges directly. And I have no pride, as evidenced by my bowling shirt that says the dude script.
Wow, hardcore, all right.
Thank you, because thanks to you in that movie, I was able to have a bong hit with my 80-year-old father, which was no watershed moment because he was asleep 5 minutes later on the couch. If I can have a picture with you later, would make his...
We're going deep
Wait,
here.
you have a picture of you and your 80-year-old dad hitting on the bar? Is that what you said? I can't hear him
Oh,
exactly.
they were
Is that what
bowling.
they were,
Bowling, I
oh,
believe.
bowling!
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like a
I thought it
Lebowski
was
thing.
a bong.
No,
I
they
thought
were
you
hitting
said
on the bong, too,
hitting
I'm
on
sure.
the bong.
But my question is, I read the interview that you gave in the New York Times Magazine section last week, and I found it interesting, Ms. Lowry, that you said that you had sold the rights to the movie rights to the book, without retaining any creative control, which I found is that unusual? Isn't it unusual that you would do that?
Selling the rights
So is that
with-
weird, selling the rights
without
any
creative control. Oh, it's very rare for
Yes.
the writer of the book to have any creative control.
Or even if they tell you have creative
Yeah, that they
control, you
lie,
don't,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff, I mean, that's the great thing. You had the most control. I love how involved you were. And that's
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
like the best guarantee that the thing will get well
And
made.
the truth be told, no one has creative control, except Woody Allen,
Yep.
who I understand can do his whole movie, can scrap it. You know about that,
yeah.
Lois? He can scrap the movie
Yeah.
and recast and do the whole thing. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But most of all, you know, even Philip Noyce, he had to answer to Harvey and Walden, and
Yep.
you know, all of the different forces. And that's kind of a wonderful process, because then, you know, I remember the first gathering that we had over at Philip's house, and he made a toast, and he invited the Giver Muse to come and inhabit this adventure, you know, and that's what you pray that will happen. And I think in this case, she came and
into the world.
had her way with us.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody in the back there? Where'd the microphones go? Oh, yeah.
Hi. I love the book. I found the book because both my children recommended it to me. I'm just curious as to, the giver seems a lot older in the book, so I'll just talk about the choice to make him younger in the movie, the decision to make him...
Wow, this is both a question and a compliment. They thought the giver was supposed to be much older. You apparently just kicked it there. The young giver.
Well, I know. I thought that too. I thought the giver would, there's a lot of other actors that,
I guess he is more wrinkly than you in this.
But one of the interesting things, I don't know if I can say this. I wonder if I should let this cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
I'll let it out. Okay, I'll let it out of the bag, but don't tell anybody.
All right. All these people sworn.
And the reason this is always a tricky part, when you're in this part of the, the movie making process, selling the movie.
Yeah.
It's often that the most interesting things you don't want to supply the audience with because you want them to see it in a kind of fresh way. But I'll just tell this.
This is
story.
a tough crowd.
So I'm looking at this book and I see that beard,
Yeah.
and so I ask my makeup guy, who I've worked on many movies with, Thomas Nellen, what I should do, because I had at the time actually quite a long goatee, about this long, and he says, well, if you want to do the real long beard, we should really clean shave you. And start from scratch because it'll take more time to integrate your beard in with this fake beard. So I said, okay, and I shaved my beard and we started, and I had a beard like that, And then we showed it to Harvey and the team and Philip, and they said, no, it should be a little shorter, So it's almost like in the movie, closer.
Yeah.
And so we go, oh, like this, and they would say, no, closer. Boom, it came like that. And finally got to be about, like this. And then about the day before shooting, I had dinner with Harvey's right-hand guy, and we're talking, and he says, Harvey really sees the giver as more of a virile, sexy guy. And I say, well, fascinating, and I was as I said earlier, I was in the, I had get this mindset of, Jeff, this is not going to be how you pictured it. Yeah. And you got all these artists to work with, and my direction to myself was, look at these people as aspects of yourself,
Yeah.
And so I said, oh, that's fascinating. Okay. And so I came up with a beard about this length.
Yeah, just barely.
But an artificial one.
That's not even a real one?
That it's not a real beard, but Thomas Nellen is such an incredible makeup artist that you don't notice it. It's just like it's perfect. But the time they would have saved, it took me 2 hours.
All your good hair growing.
Oh, I mean,
also.
just yeah.
Not.
But that's like an interesting thing. I probably shouldn't have said that.
So you heard it here first. Yeah, this is Jeff decided to go sexy giver.
In the movie, this is a little side thing, but I'll throw it out. In Tucker, a movie I did with Francis Coppola, the first week of shooting, I had a scene where I'm supposed to, out of my frustration, hit this bulletin board, and I broke my right hand. And I went to the hospital, and they said, yeah, you broke it, and I said, oh, they're going to fire me. They can replace me. They're only a week in. And then I went back after lunch and almost broke my left hand with the same thing. And I had this cast, a removable cast, and I would take it off. And this guy, Tucker, he was almost Italian in his use of his hands when he spoke. And so I had this broken hand and would have to, do this like this. And it was terrible. And then finally Francis said, just wear the cast. And if you don't think about it, the audience will never see the cast.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And as I'm watching the film, there's only one scene where I slightly see the cast. And that was so difficult for me to suppress that information with the audience. And now I've just gone against my whole thing, and I've armed you guys.
Wait, we can fix it all with one more question. I think we have time for one more over there. Yes.
So you mentioned The Giver was on a banned books list, and I didn't realize that. So I wanted to know if any of you had insight on why that was the case, and Lois, how you felt about that when you learned that.
Lois, why was The Giver on the banned book list? Besides washing naked old people and killing babies. Those are just my first two guesses.
It was parents felt it was too dark, too frightening for kids to read. I think, although this was never stated outright, I think they were troubled, some of them also, by the fact that it told about a boy who perceived the hypocrisy of the older generation and who broke rules in attempting to set things right. So I think it was unsettling for some parents.
Yeah, because the ultimate thing you learn, I think, is to question authority.
Yeah, question authority, yeah.
There's a message from Lois Lowry, question authority. Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay.
Lois Lowry, author of The Giver.
Jeff
Bridges, our producer, actor. He is The Giver. And then I think Lois is going to be signing books after this somewhere. Is that true, anyone?
I'm not sure.
We don't know. So just ask someone out there if she's signing books. Or,
One more question. That lady has a question.
oh, yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, shout it out. I'll repeat it. Oh, no, there's a mic.
Oh, that's all right. I project. Anyway, I haven't had the pleasure of reading the book, and I didn't know whether, I have two questions, very brief, whether you would have any back there that you would be autographing or selling this evening.
We'll find out.
All right. And the second thing is for Jeff Bridges, because I'm into music, creating children's toys and things like that. And I'm a great admirer of your music, which is so important for film. And everybody applaud. Yay!
Thank you.
And I just wonder if I'm correct in remembering you playing in Bangkok many years ago when I was singing at the Rama Hilton Hotel.
Wow, I'm glad we saved this for last.
And I
that's like-
remember
Were you playing
coming
in
up
Bangkok?
to you and saying, if you're not too important, would you accompany me? And you were just as gracious as you could be. This is a terrible thing
Yes,
to do to
yes.
you.
What year was that?
I don't talk about that because I just say I'm
You don't
Can you
know?
give him a decade?
about 25 years ago.
If you said Hong Kong,
It was Hong Kong.
it was
too.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong at the Hilton.
Here it is. I'm going to tell you what it was.
Don't mention the year, please.
More secret.
Don't mention what?
The year.
Don't mention the year.
Yes.
But I'll say around 1969.
Could be.
Yeah, just vaguely like.
And it
I
was,
was
I
a
think, my
baby.
second film,
Yes.
which was called The Yin and Yang of Mr. Go.
Yes. Yes.
Written by Burgess Meredith,
Yes.
starring James Mason, who
And they
played
were
a
in the
Chinese
audience.
Mexican.
They
Is
were-
that it?
That's it.
And Burgess was.
And they were in the audience.
Say what?
They were in the audience that night.
And they were
Burgess
in the
Meredith
audience.
was in
Yes.
the audience?
And
With James
Jackie
Mason?
McGowan, the wonderful
Isn't
Joycey,
that
and
wild?
scholar and actor.
I knew I wasn't dreaming.
No, you were. That's so
I think
wild.
I'm dreaming this right now.
It's so wild that you would say that.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll find out about the books for you.
All right. Wonderful to be with you guys. Thank you.
Don't trip on your shoelace.
Thank you.